meeting started. So, good evening. Thank you all for taking the time out of your schedule to be here tonight with us. My name is Andrea Davis. Oh, hey, I'm not on the microphone. Sorry about that, Paul. This is not to amplify my voice because I don't need it, obviously. But this is to pick up the Missoula Community Access Channel. So he's going to be very careful to not get anybody's face on the film tonight. Unless you want to make a star debut, you will be on cable. It's pretty exciting. Somebody will call you up the next day and say, I saw you. Yeah. But I work for the Missoula Housing Authority. Again, my name is Andrea Davis. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the Missoula Housing Authority. And I am joined tonight by my coworker and the Executive Director of the agency, Lori Davidson. She's in the back there. And then we've got several board members here as well. We've got Jamie Hoffman, who's the chair of the board. He's sitting there with his arm raised. We've got Elza Ostrom here in the blue vest. Sandy Mitchell against the wall there. And then we've got Debbie Miller, who you all know probably very well. She works for the Salvation Army as well as sits on our board. So we've got a few members of the Franklin to Fort Neighborhood Council here, which is also my neighborhood council. So thanks for coming this evening. And then some neighbors to the property. I wanted to give you a background on where we've been to date, but also explain who IDC is. The Missoula Housing Authority created a subsidiary corporation called the Intermountain Development Company to buy this parcel directly next door to you, this 12-acre parcel. And it is a very closely held corporation to the Housing Authority. In fact, the board members are exactly the same except for one member. There's one additional community member on the Intermountain Development Company board. And the Housing Authority created that corporation in order to take out a loan to purchase this land. The state of Montana legislation does not allow lenders to foreclose on Housing Authority property. So that makes it challenging for us to do some development projects when we need to take out a bank loan. What we do is we create a support corporation, either another company or, bless you, a 501c3, and that is technically who owns this land, Intermountain Development Company, but it really is the Missoula Housing Authority. We bought this property in December of 2003. We've had it for a long time. And we have had various development incentives, and what we've been trying to do here has been a mixed use, mixed income, fairly dense, urban scale property. And we had that initiative for 3 years. We had 2 different development partners on board, and last August, the last development partner that we were working with out of Minneapolis actually, backed out of the deal due to a couple circumstances. Both Minneapolis, the credit market, and everything that we're hearing about the subprime, and that started to hit in Minneapolis far before it started to hit in Missoula. That organization started to basically not have the capacity to come over here and do the work. So the Missoula Housing Authority and the Intermountain Development Company said, okay, we got to do something with this land. We have 12 acres of land. We've owned it for nearly 4 years. We have a bank loan of $2.25 million. We have extremely high interest payments every month to make on the land. So we have moved forward with a 5-lot subdivision application to the city of Missoula. And to back up a little bit, when we were originally moving forward with, sure, no problem. When we originally were moving forward with our original concept, that dense, more dense urban scale. In fact, a number of you were probably here in November of 2006. We did a presentation to you, and at that time, that was called Market Square. And one component of that, hi, come on in. Nice to see you, Kim.
This door is open and unlocked. The rest of it is secure for the rest of the building. So they have a way to get in. So
excellent.
You see them pushing them to come in this door.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you don't have to let me. Oh, okay, sorry.
No problem.
Edit that part.
So I was talking about IDC, and I was giving you a little history on Market Square. That original vision was not going, that we were not going to subdivide the land. We were actually going to keep it as one large ownership, and we were going to basically condo all the separate development projects, the multi-use buildings, the commercial buildings, the residential buildings. But because that project has basically been put aside, we're moving forward with something that we know we can, first of all, sell some of the land to recoup some of the costs, but also something that we can basically start getting some units built right away because we do have this loan, and it's something that will affect the housing authority's bottom line if we don't start getting units built and this loan paid off. So that's why we're now moving forward with a 5-lot subdivision, and this is pretty hard to see. So I don't know, Lori, if you would be willing to walk around and show people here. But what we have is an arterial photograph of.
Let's hold it up first and then
Yeah.
around so you can get a better view of it.
I put a little. Here's where we are right here, Silvercrest. Okay, and. Our intention all along, again, is to have affordable units, market rate units, commercial and retail. Because we're not going to be doing that Market Square, the mixed use parcel, what we're going to be doing is phasing in different types of housing properties. We're going to be building affordable housing, and we're looking at building market rate housing. We're also looking at building some workforce housing for first-time home buyers, for example, because it's a serious need in Missoula. We're lacking affordable home ownership opportunities, particularly for our young professionals in the community. A lot of professions and corporations, companies are not able to bring in the type of talent they're looking for because the housing market is the way it is, as many of us know. So what we're looking at here, and we are doing a minor subdivision versus a major subdivision. Yeah, there we go. And if you can't see that, please, come on up close, or just ask us to bring it around, and we'll do that for you. Let me just orient you to where we are in the site plan. This is Catlin Street. Okay, here's Silvercrest. This is Russell. Okay, this is 4G's property and West Side Lanes Bowling Alley. Okay. When this photograph was taken, this is the most up-to-date one we have, you can still see there are buildings on this land. And as many of the Silvercrest residents know, we have taken our time to deconstruct these buildings. And what we did was we worked with a contractor who actually deconstructed and sold this material on the open market. The good news was we actually got paid for it, and very, very little product actually went into the landfill. So we're very excited about that. But there's a lot of cement and a lot of asphalt. It's a cement jungle over there right now. So the idea has always been, and the reason the Housing Authority got involved with this parcel to begin with, was to develop affordable housing units. Our goal has been about 72 affordable housing units. And with the passing of the Market Square concept, and with this new concept that we're working with, it looks like we might actually have more affordable housing units mixed in with the market rate that I was just mentioning. So we're doing a minor subdivision, partly because a major subdivision requires much more in terms of, okay, consulting?
For my cough, I'll be
Sure.
right back.
Okay, sounds good, we'll fill you in. There's a number of reasons why we're not going to be doing a major subdivision. Most of it has to do with time and cost. A major subdivision is 6 lots or more, and a minor is 5 lots or fewer. So we have, and I'll just point them out here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lots. The Missoula Housing Authority was just awarded a grant application last Monday. It could have been 3 Mondays ago. I really don't know. No, the 7th of April. And I'm very happy and proud to announce that we will be building a 37-unit low-income housing tax credit project. Fireweed Court, which is just across the street from us here, there are these tan duplex buildings. Those are owned by Homeward, which is a local community development corporation and nonprofit. That is also a low-income housing tax credit project. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's different than the Silvercrest in that the rent isn't subsidized like 30% of your income, like it is here. But the rents are affordable. And what that is we apply to the state who has tax credits from the IRS. And we sell those tax credits to an investor. And that money that we generate from that investor, we use to build the actual property, to actually build the buildings. But we still have to take a mortgage out. And that's why the rents are not on a sliding scale for income. You do have to be income qualified to live there. But the renters are mostly working Missoulians or those on fixed incomes that can afford the rent. The range of rents for this first 37-unit phase is anywhere from $222 a month up to $639 a month. So it reaches to 30% area median income, which is... How large are the units? We have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The majority are 1 and 2 bedrooms. That's because that's our greatest need on our waiting lists, both on our Section 8 waiting list, our public housing, and all the various waiting lists that we have at the Housing Authority for tax credits and senior housing. 1 and 2 bedroom is our greatest need. Our greatest need is 1 bedroom, which is probably something that you all can identify with very well.
Are they all going to be in one area, or are they going to be scattered?
Well, this first 37 units are all going to be located on this lot right here, Lot 4. And as we move, let me just explain what we're envisioning. Excuse me if I'm jumping around. Lot 1 and Lot 2 we're reserving for commercial development. That's because they're right on Russell. And Russell is truly a commercial thoroughfare, especially between 3rd and Broadway. We had pondered putting residential all the way up to Russell, but we really do want to buffer the residential units that we build, and this is a very good commercial opportunity. They're going to be expanding Russell, as you know, and that's not going to take place, and we won't see construction until 2011. But they're working on it now, and our plan takes into account the right-of-way necessary for the Russell Street roadway to expand. Glad to see you're back.
Hopefully I'll be able to stay the same.
Okay. So we've got commercial, and then we've got various phases of housing types that we're looking at here. Like I mentioned, we just got funded for this 37-unit project here, so that's going to go in first, initially. And then we're looking at a couple of different types of additional affordable housing. One thing we're looking at is replacement public housing. The Missoula Housing Authority is going to be selling 20 of its largest single-family public housing units. There are 3, 4, and 5 bedroom units. Again, we're going to be selling 20 of those. They're located up on the South Hills. The reason that we're going to be selling those is because they're cost prohibitive, more or less. And it is by far our smallest need. Our greatest need, again, is 1 and 2 bedrooms. These units were built in the 70s and 80s, and they're long overdue for a massive overhaul. And we just did an improvement to one, and it cost us $30,000. We've done another one recently, and it was $16,000. They're large units. They're on quarter-acre lots. So we, as an agency, are taking a look at that resource and saying, if we sell those 20 units and generate funds, we can turn around and build new units that will be more efficient, more energy efficient, more handicap accessible. That's another great need that we're not able to meet with those units on the hill. Is they're not handicap accessible. First, they're on a hill. Second of all, most of them are 2-story. They're either a sub-basement or 2-story, classic 70s style house where you've got that overhang. And we can't meet our accessibility needs, both for accessible families and elderly. So the other additional type of affordable housing that we're looking at here is replacement public housing. We're looking at anywhere from an 18 to a 20 unit building. All of this is, except for the project that we just got funded, everything is draft until we know for sure that we're going to be able to move forward with, that we're going to be able to finance it.
Are they still going to have a First Street?
The First Street that's here, no, we're not going to be moving forward with putting in First Street here. We've been coordinating closely with Public Works over the years that we've owned this parcel. And that was our question to them. Do they want us to create a grid, a street grid? And the answer to that is really no. What Public Works is looking for is a connection between Russell and Catlin. And so this dark line in the middle of the parcel that kind of jogs like this is the road. And we're not having it a straight road because we're concerned that people will cut through from Russell to Catlin. We want to create a safe environment. We want to have that road turn and curve in such a way that folks slow down. When they see it from Russell, they're not going to go, great, straight shot, and rip.
What do you call that turning road?
What's that?
What do you call that turning road?
Well, you mean the name of this road? Well, let me see what you think of this. This is the old Milwaukee Railroad line, and the Milwaukee Trail is across. So what do you think about Milwaukee Way?
Well, I don't care.
Well, okay, then I got your vote.
I think they should name it Andrea.
Well, my last name is Davis, and there's already a Davis Street in this neighborhood.
Trudy's Way.
Trudy's Way, yeah. So it's a 60 feet it's a 60 foot road. It will access and be the access for all of these lots, all 5 of these lots. In addition, lot 1 and lot 2 will have access off of Russell. Not quite sure how that's going to look yet. What we do know from Public Works is that this is a right in and right out only. When the preferred alternative for Russell Street will be a 5-lane road, hopefully maybe looking something like Stevens, where we've got a raised landscaped median, bike lanes, boulevard, and then sidewalk. We don't have quite as much room here that they do on Stevens, but that's what they're looking at for an alternative. And because they are trying to control the amount of turns from the road, because it's pretty high volume traffic, most likely out in front of our site here, and they'll most likely have a turn in here on 2nd. But most likely for our property, it's going to be a right in and a right out only. It's going to be controlled traffic. And partly because, again, they don't want folks taking a left into the site for traffic control reasons. Raised median, actually it generally looks pretty nice. There will be a signaled light. And this is all in planning stage, so nothing is finalized yet. But they're looking at a signalized light at Wyoming and Catlin. And folks from Wyoming and Russell, thank you. Right up in here. Right up in here. So folks from, residents here and folks from living on the Intermountain Lumber site would be able to come through here to Catlin Street and then head up north to Wyoming, east to the light at Russell, and be able to take a left there or a right, but at a signalized light. And the city Public Works certainly anticipates the bulk of the folks that live in this area to be actually using that light.
Excuse me, I can't talk very loud. Will all of this affect the mountain bus line route?
Well, I don't know that it'll affect it in any other way that they might then run an additional route or additional stops for us. We've been in communication with Mountain Line. When we originally had our Market Square plan, we had talked about actually creating an internal stop here into the site. But Mountain Line, at this point, more or less wants to stick to the streets.
It comes over up Russell to Broadway, turns west on Wyoming to Catlin to 3rd, and out there to the hospital. And I've been taking that for a long time.
Have you? Excellent.
I don't anymore, but I retired from the hospital.
Oh, okay.
But it's very convenient the way their route is in this area.
Wonderful. That's great to hear.
And you can ride out right across by the Sinclair station, catch a bus, take it to the Southgate Mall. So
Great.
I'd hate to see their route disturbed.
Right. No, in fact, not at all. And I apologize to the viewers at home and the camera. I did say that I was going to repeat the questions, and I haven't been doing that. The question was, is the bus line actually going to be disturbed or disrupted from this development? And the answer to that is no. In fact, it will only be enhanced because we rely very heavily, the type of residents that we help find housing for rely very heavily on the bus. And one of the advantages and one of the reasons that we even own and that we're even considering developing this site is because it's so centrally located, because the bus line is right on the route. Our offices at the Missoula Housing Authority, our offices are in an apartment complex that we developed, and we worked with Mountain Line to develop a shelter there. So it's more than a stop, but it actually is a shelter with a bench and a place for schedules to be posted. So we would certainly consider doing the same here. We want to make it easier for people to ride the bus and not more difficult, absolutely.
They had a man on the bus asking questions, or getting people's opinion on the bus service and the routes and stuff. So they might be thinking of something.
Interesting. I know the bus is constantly reevaluating the areas that it serves and the frequency of users on certain routes. But no, we would actually want to enhance bus ridership and the frequency of the bus, and we'd even like to see something on Russell, but that is really undetermined until they do the Russell Street construction and design.
They said, you can't do buses on West Reserve Russell because of the inability to get off the road.
Right.
And more apparent is getting back into the traffic.
Yeah.
Russell and Reserve, that's a big hassle.
Yeah.
They can't with Russell,
Right. No, you're so correct on that, and that's why until that road gets reconstructed and widened, there's not even a real potential to see anything like a bus stop on Russell. A couple of interesting points that I want to emphasize that have been true to this property since the beginning. We are going to be extending the bicycle and pedestrian trail, the Milwaukee Trail, that leads all the way down the river downtown, up the Hellgate Canyon. We're going to be extending that over to our property here. We're actually going to be dedicating a 20-foot easement to the city of Missoula. And on this is called a preliminary plat, and I'll go through the timeline of a subdivision here in a second, but you only see it actually go to the end of this first lot, and that's because we actually are writing into our preliminary subdivision that we want to be able to locate the trail on this lot, Lot 5, after we know how it's going to be developed. And so we're absolutely going to be connecting the trail from the east side of Russell, and when they do reconstruct Russell, it will actually go the trail will actually go underneath the road, like Orange Street does. It'll be a little different because Orange Street's elevated.
That's not what Orange does, doesn't it? Because my husband and I walked on that trail a lot.
Great.
The other day we went all the way through that. We hadn't been through the tunnel before, but we went all the way through the tunnel the other day.
Great. Well,
Yeah, it would make it a lot easier if we didn't have to cross the street to get to the trail.
Oh,
We just have to hope everybody stops.
I know. It's a gauntlet. It's an absolute gauntlet here.
Or they have.
So at this stage, what we're doing is we're creating the preliminary plat, and this is about an 8-month process, and we're a couple months into it. So we most likely won't have approval by City Council
Missoula Civic Press.
until October,
Yeah, come right in.
and we'll see. That all depends on how we can move through the public process and the agencies that review the subdivision plan. After that, after you get your preliminary plat approval, then you move forward with construction documents. And those construction documents and conditions that agencies or city council might place on the subdivision, those actually have to be in place. Financing for those improvements, roadway, sewer, water, everything that goes into it, curb and gutter financing for it at least has to be in place. And then we can do our final plat, and that's when you can sell a lot. So we're not looking at sales of lots until 10 to 12 months from now.
The construction.
I think someone's trying to get in that.
I pushed the door so it should open.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, we're all.
Meeting's over.
Went the wrong way.
Thank you.
The construction work that will be done. Will that be a bid situation?
A business improvement district?
A bid?
Oh, well, we bid it out.
And it will be a bid. Whoever offers whatever construction company offers the best bid.
Correct. Hi, Bob. How are you? Councilman Bob Jaffe is here. I'd also like to point out that Jason Weiner and Ed Childers is here. So we've got 3 city council folks here tonight. Thanks for joining us. Did I miss anybody? Okay, good. We will be bidding out the work, and let me explain where we are with that right now. When we were still working on the Market Square vision, and this was back this summer, and our developer backed out, the board said, we need to sell this land. So we did a request for proposals and did a competitive proposal for a real estate agent, and we hired a real estate agent, and that's Properties 2000. We put it out on the market with the idea that we were still going to maintain about 4 acres for affordable housing because we had an application that we, again, just received funding for. And what came back as part of that listing was a co-development and a design-build contract by a company called Walsh Construction and Walsh Investments. And Walsh is Tom Walsh. He's a gentleman from Portland, Oregon. He has been working in the construction and the affordable housing field for over 40 years. He is absolutely that. He's a gentleman. Would love to have him here. In fact, he has been busy and tied up with some work over in Portland, but he looks forward to the opportunity to come and do some public meetings to talk about some more of the specifics in terms of the residential portion of this property. He will be serving as the general contractor, and he will be doing local bidding. He will be hiring local contractors as much as is reasonable.
He's well known in Oregon. I lived down there for a while.
Oh, really?
I don't know him, of course. I've heard of him.
Really? All right.
I lived in Eugene for 6-7 years.
Absolutely, yeah. He's got lots of work up and down the coast. It's glowing reports, everybody we speak with, so we're very excited to be able to work with somebody like Tom.
Is there enough progress in this prospectus to determine whether the utilities and lights and lines and power are going to be buried, or will they be above ground? Or do you know?
I actually don't know that. The question is, do we know enough at this point to know whether power lines will be above ground or below ground? All utilities will be buried. The water and sewer clearly will be buried. In terms of power lines, that I'm not certain about yet. I would hope that we would have them buried, but it is far greater expense to bury utility lines versus having them above ground. Because we're dealing with, when you're talking about utilities, we're dealing with a relatively small parcel, so there's a real opportunity that we would be able to bury, but I don't know that yet. I'm not certain. That's a good idea. So an additional piece to the trail that I'd like to point out, we're going to be creating what's called bioswales on this property for the sumps. This area of Missoula, all of the wastewater that flows off of the paved surfaces goes into sumps, and it gets delivered directly to our aquifer. One thing that we've maintained and kept true is that we want to build this 12 acres as sustainably as possible. And one thing that we can do in the infrastructure development is creating what are called bioswales. They're basically, you just grade the land and landscape it. So before the water actually flows into the sump and into the aquifer, it's filtered first. The plants actually filter it. So we're going to be looking at some bioswales on the property lines, in between the commercial and the residential portion, and again between these 2 lots here. So you'll see sort of a natural undulation. We have a bioswale at our offices at the Missoula Housing Authority, and it works quite well. It works quite well from in terms of just water runoff and that type of thing. So again, it's somewhat of a long process. We are going to be meeting with the Office of Planning and Grants tomorrow. They review what's called an element review, and that is, are all the components of your subdivision application there? And from there, that element review goes out they make sure that that is complete, and then the final application is submitted, which goes out to agency review. And I'm giving this face because I'm a little confused by the process, but that's because we haven't had to do many subdivisions for what we've done in the past for our types of development. So we're going to be looking at affordable rentals and first-time homeownership opportunities, most likely, if we're able to do that, via a land trust. The company in town, or the nonprofit in town that does that, is the North Missoula Community Development Corporation. We've spoken with them about partnering. We would like to be able to do that first and foremost so we could actually reach down to, again, an affordable need for first-time homebuyers or Missoula's workforce. But a land trust, more or less, the land trust itself owns the land. So let's just say it's on this parcel right here. The land trust owns the land, and the homeowner only buys the actual structure. So once you take the land out of the equation, it's much more affordable. So these are all things that we're working on doing the financial feasibility on, making sure that we actually can do the type of development that we're talking about with, let's say perhaps that land trust if it was condoed. Right now the condo market is a little bit soft in this country. There's not a whole lot of condo financing. Now that's going to pick up again. We're in a lull in terms of available financing for things like condominiums. So that's why we're going to be doing this 37-unit tax credit project first. And then we'll be looking at potentially the second phase is the replacement public housing. We're also looking at doing market rate apartments there as well. So the Housing Authority would do all of the development, the management, and the maintenance of all of the phases there. And again, looking to sell off these commercial units. We've had a lot of interest over the entire time we've owned it, but particularly since people knew that we were going to be subdividing into 1 to 3 acre tracts. Not a lot of people have uses for 12 acres in Missoula, is what we found.
It's concrete.
Oh, that's concrete, yeah. It's concrete jungle. So let me just stop there because I could probably keep talking and see what other questions folks have. Lori, is there anything to add?
When do you think you're going to start developing this? It's going to be very soon?
Well, it's not going to be, we're out several months yet. We're not going to start breaking ground on this project until October.
Are you doing the front part or the back part yet?
We're going to start on the back part. We're going to start on Catlin.
That's what somebody said before, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's been our intention from the beginning. That's where we're going to start. Bob?
Do you have a conceptual site plan yet?
For the 37 unit?
For any portion?
We don't have a conceptual site plan for it. We've been working a bit with Tom Walsh on some ideas, and this is something that is very, very draft. And at the time, his architect had drawn 6 lots, which we're not going to be doing because we're not going to be doing a major subdivision. Lori, could you hold that up? And at this point, it was just blocking. I mean, so this is really unfair to show you because it's not a conceptual design. It's not a design at all. It was blocking unit types on the very initial stage of development, is to say, can we actually fit it on this property? So we do have our conceptual design, of course, for the 37 unit property, because we had to have that for our tax credit application. And for our home and CDBG, the city has provided a $435,000 low interest loan to the Housing Authority for this first phase and a $150,000 grant. So we have a conceptual site plan for that, but not for all the phases of residential. John, and then Patricia.
Have you learned anything more about that grade separated trail crossing under Russell?
Not anything more that you don't know.
You explained about there being a very deep sewer line there that has to be avoided?
Correct, and actually, I take that back. I have learned something more. The city is looking to acquire this easement on the east side of the parcel, and that's where it's going to be the farthest underground. They have to go under Russell quite a ways. The sewer line, from my understanding, is 15 feet below the surface of Russell, and that means that they need to go 30 feet underneath the surface of Russell in order to keep the structural integrity of the road. I'm not city engineering, so I hope I didn't misspeak, but that's what I understand. And It has to be because it's public funds, and we want it to be, of course, physically accessible for those in a wheelchair or walking or whatever it might be. So there has to be a very low grade from the lowest part all the way up. So what this is probably going to do is it's probably going to be a little wider at the mouth and then taper down. But that's all I know. That's all I really know. There hasn't been much discussion in terms of design. The trail will clearly be landscaped, so it will have landscaping and hopefully zero-scape landscaping. Patricia.
What kind of sustainable features are you going to incorporate in those 37 units?
Actually, quite a bit. Thank you for asking. We're doing several things in terms of energy savings. So fluorescent lights, low-flow shower heads and faucets. We're going to be low-flow toilets, for example. We call low VOC paint volatile or organic compounds. Paint has some serious chemicals in it that emit chemicals. Some paint doesn't. We're going to be doing what's called a low VOC paint. Very little chemicals will emit from the paint. We're looking at recycled products for flooring, for carpet. We'll be doing hardy board cement composite siding. That improves the insulation. We're actually increasing our insulation substantially. We are going to be orienting the awnings or the windows in order to lessen solar gain. We are going to do zero-scape or native plantings as much as possible. And, what? Didn't hear that? Oh. You all right? You want me to get you a glass of water? Want you get you? No? Okay.
You're going to use a ground source heat pump?
We're not, and we looked at the financial feasibility of that, and it is something that requires a substantial amount of grant financing to do. So one of the reasons that we didn't do it is because we are doing a 92 or 93% efficiency furnace. So we're well above the International Energy Conservation Code. And so they're going to be individual gas forced furnaces, but they're going to be highly, highly efficient. So tenants will pay their own utilities, but we're making the overall cost to the individual tenant as little as possible by increasing the, there's several things that we're doing to add to that. We're increasing the energy efficiency of the windows and things of that nature. The units won't be air conditioned. There are things that we could do that would take away from some of the other amenities. For example, an air conditioning is one, and we'll have a policy where folks can have their own air conditioner, and we'll figure out how we can work that into the property management window unit. Yes?
Will there be any kind of buffer zone between us and that new, all these additions and stuff?
Well, we haven't designed anything yet. What kind of things do you have in mind?
Well, so you have something to look at besides walls, like this wall here.
Certainly, certainly.
You know,
Absolutely. You know, in fact, I would love to spend some time actually with you in getting your comments on the design of the property. Something that in all of the developments that we do, we incorporate our neighborhood because the neighbors are the ones that have to look at it. And we will absolutely be orienting the building. So you're going to be looking at somebody's, the way that we've got the concept to date, you're going to be looking at somebody's front porch actually. So it's not going to be a bare wall that you might have, but we could also consider shrubs, trees, fencing.
some kind of buffer zone, you know, so we
You bet.
but how about the height of the building? Is it going to be even, so we can see the mountains now?
Correct. They will not be any higher than your building. The limit here is 45 feet in this area. That property is zoned what's called C2 commercial, but there's a south side riverfront overlay zone, and that restricts the height of buildings. So 45 feet would be the absolute maximum of the peak of a building. It would not be any higher than your building.
We'll try some of them.
That doesn't help at all. If it's the same height as ours, you still can't see it.
Well, and that's correct. And you're building 4 stories and a roof peak. So we're going to be looking at, oh, so I guess this property is not affected by the south side riverfront overlay. Your building is taller than 45 feet. We're looking at a 3-story building. So it will be shorter than yours. I don't know how tall your building is, probably 60 feet.
about the walkthrough
In terms of connection?
of them walking through the good food store, through all this complex?
Well, what we'd like to do is be able to foresee or anticipate the trails that people take. So we're going to be building sidewalks, but as you know, there's only going to be sidewalks out in front of our unit. The rest of Catlin won't have sidewalks for a bit yet. And Russell Street, again, is not going to be improved beyond our portion
Well, I don't
until
think they're gonna
2011.
go around if they can come through.
They even jumped the curb out here with their cars.
Yeah, yeah.
Backside. There should have been an opening there, I guess, but
Right.
come through more.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to consider, which is how are people on foot going to be getting from our property to the good food store. I'd like to actually work that out with the Salvation Army and with you, because what we don't want to do is deter people from using their feet to walk next door. I'd rather see people walk, obviously safe, you know, a serious safety concern. I'd rather see people walk than get in their cars constantly, because to me that's a safer neighborhood. But what we should do is we should get together and talk about how we can make that work so the path is lit and it's secure. Maybe even in a gated situation. You know, we have, as you know, we have an irrigation ditch between our property, and then it follows our property all the way heading north. And the irrigation companies really don't like it when you culvert their irrigation ditches. And we've done various things. I mean, we own property all around Missoula, and we've done various things to accommodate the irrigation ditches. One thing that's been most effective is to leave the irrigation ditch as it is and put in a very nice a wrought iron or a nice iron fence that is the vertical members up and down. A little child, toddler can't get over, but an older child can, because the reality is you're not going to keep an 11-year-old out from an irrigation ditch. It also would allow safety personnel to be able to jump that fence, a parent, another child to jump that fence if somebody did actually get into that irrigation ditch. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to consider in terms of any sort of a trail or an arterial coming over onto the side, is that we do have an irrigation ditch there. We could consider maybe a small bridge. We've done that on 2 properties, very charming, and we want to take advantage of the irrigation ditch and create a site amenity. So we are going to be, the irrigation ditch along Catlin, we're actually going to be incorporating into our boulevard, and it's going to be part of the landscaping. Kim?
A few years ago, I saw a plan or a sketch of this area, how it was planned. If I recall, in the middle there was a public space where fountain and cafes around that and all that. Now I see the streets.
Yeah.
Is something of that sort still aimed at?
We're not able to stay with that original design. That required complete rezoning of the property to a special zoning district. What we were doing was eliminating that south side riverfront overlay zone that I just mentioned. We would create, basically cluster the parking and the development so we can take side yards and front yards, and we collected all of those yards into that 1.5 acre park. But because we're not moving forward with the Market Square vision for this property, we won't have an 1.5 acre size park. We certainly wish we could have done that. I mean, that was why we hung on to that for so long and had 2 different development partners. What we are encouraging, for example, on the 37-unit property, we're going to be having some outdoor space for the families there in terms of a playground, but also gardening space. And we're looking at utilizing the site amenities to relate to the trail as much as possible. But we're not going to be able to have a large park on this site. Unfortunately, we really wish we could, but it's just not something that's feasible at this point.
But maybe if it's not a park, even it could be something where a fountain is or some gathering place, but that's awesome.
Well, it depends on who might. We don't have the concept or the design concept dialed in yet to a point where I could tell you we were able to do that or not. But that's a very interesting point, to have a public place that's a focal point to the property.
Cafes, sort of businesses.
Yeah. Well, these 2 lots here are commercial, and if the folks that are willing, that are going to develop that are willing to do that concept, which would be fantastic. I mean, that's exactly what we'd love to see there. Boy, we would work with that person to make it happen. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yep, go right ahead.
Does Montana have a state law about the percentage of green belt under construction for X amount of construction, you have to have X amount of green belt?
Yes, they do. There's a state enabling legislation, and then the local municipality puts that into effect through its zoning ordinance. So there is 35% of your property, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 35% of a multifamily zoned or a multifamily property has to be landscaped and landscaped in such a way. Now, all of the zoning ordinances and districts in Missoula have different side yard and front yard setbacks. The south side riverfront overlay zone actually has increased side yard and front yard setbacks. Because we're going to be looking at more multifamily buildings than we are going to be looking at single family homes, that really won't be, we'll actually be able to pull in the units and create more of a shelter belt or green area.
At one time, you said that there might be a police station. Are they still considered?
No, they're not. That was, again, part of the Market Square aspect to invite the police station to do a substation here. It seems that the focus is to rebuild the current police station in City Hall, and they want to keep that as close to downtown as possible. Now, I do have 3 city council members here tonight. If anybody has any additional information or would like to speak to that.
This discussion is still between trying to retain the dam, something on the downtown side or possibly around the mill site is the other.
Yeah. The mill site is that large 40-acre tract that is the old Champion mill site, pretty much downtown, but on our side of the river. And they just rezoned that, and they've also subdivided that parcel. And we're going to see that developed eventually. Most likely it depends on the development pattern and what's happening in the market. But the city is actually looking at trading some downtown land, and it's all possibility at this point. But actually relocating City Hall and Police Department on the mill site. So it would be on our side of the river, which is kind of a nice thing. I certainly wish we could do that substation, but they're not interested in creating precincts at this point, or substations, from what I understand. Other questions?
Oh, yeah. Will maybe get single-family homes are part of it?
No, single-family homes are not, and that is due to the fact that land costs are high. Land costs are high enough on this property that it would be absolutely disproportionate for a single-family home. So unless we were able to deeply subsidize that single-family home, which is pretty unlikely given the amount of need that we have in the community. So we are going to be looking at row house configuration for a number of the phases, and we'll be looking at 3 and 4 units per row house. So it will have a less dense feeling. They're not going to be all big apartment buildings. We're actually going to be looking at more of a townhouse type of configuration. Now, this first 37-unit phase, the way it's currently designed, is 2 buildings. One is an elevator service building, and the other is a walk-up. So that will not be a townhouse configuration, but I don't want to say it couldn't happen, because our development partner that I was talking about, Tom Walsh, he has a type of building pattern construction model that he likes to work with that relates more to a townhouse configuration. However, we still would have one large multifamily building, because we want to be able to get an elevator service building both for elderly and disabled on that first phase. Any other questions?
When do you think they might start building on this property? Will that be very soon? Or?
It'll probably be about 6 months. We're looking at probably not until October. Yeah, it's going to be a little while. It's going to be a little while yet.
No, the last time I told us it's been 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a couple of years.
It's been a couple of years. You know, the last time we came and spoke with you it was October of 2006, November of 2006, and we had went in for the same grant application we just did, and we didn't get funded. So that's why it's been a little while. And now we're back at it, but we just found out 2 weeks ago that we did get funded, so excited. It's a good thing. A week ago, sorry. God, it's been a really busy couple, weeks, so sorry. Any other questions that folks have? This is not the last opportunity. First of all, this is going to be going through the public process at the City Council committee level and the City Council level. So there'll be other opportunity for public comment. But also, as we're developing the design and the considerations that you've mentioned, buffer zones and trails, things of that nature, we'd like to invite everybody to come back and take a look at that. Partly because we'd love to get your comments, but also your ideas. Some of the best design that we've done as a direct result of our neighbors. We took a group from Kalispell around today, which was an honor for us, and they're very, very pleased with Missoula. Missoula's done quite a bit of work in terms of its affordable housing and attainable housing work. And we were looking at these 6 public housing units that we just developed a couple of years ago. Well, one thing that we did, the neighbors had expressed concern to preserve their view shed to Franklin Park. So we vacated the alley behind that. And obviously all those pieces have to fit in together. The city had to be willing to vacate the alley. But we were able to pull all of our units to the back. And what that did was preserve the view shed of the neighbors to the park. So some of the very best things that we've done for our sites have been a direct result of public meetings and neighbor input. So we certainly want to come back and share with you what our concepts are and have you comment back and share your ideas with us as well. So with that, unless there's any other questions, we're located at the Housing Authority office. I've got my business card here. Our phone number is 549-4113. You can find myself or Lori Davidson. Again, my name is Andrea. We'd be happy to answer any questions if something comes up later after you're done with the meeting and you're thinking about something or have a question. Please don't hesitate to give us a ring. So I want to thank you all again for taking time out of your evening. And Lori, if there's anything that I forgot.
Just that if anyone hasn't had a chance to sign in on our little sign-in sheet here, we'd ask if you please do that for us. It's an important part of the subdivision process.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
It was outside the movie, and so we